Before giving some final words, and our time is up, but I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to, if you allow me to take 10 minutes, if there are any comments here on this side, but please let's make them quite brief. I'm going to start with Dr. Ali here, and then عشان بس ما يحطوا بس بتاعت الترجمة. Okay? And you.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Well, thank you for it. It's very insightful, but I'll have to disagree with many of what you've said. I'll start with the geopolitical instability. When you talk about geopolitical instability, part of it is related to India itself, vis-a-vis Pakistan or China, and then Israel. I mean, the ambassador mentioned that, for example, when you look at the major customer of Israeli weaponry, it's India. And it has actually solidified the relation after Modi. Now, the second point is the Indian political scheme. When you talk about during Nasser's day, this was Congress Party. I mean, Congress Party had lots of ideas about secular, national unity, that kind of a thing. The current party is BJP. This is really Hindutva at its best. And they had issues not just with Muslims, Babri Mosque, and the issues about Babri Mosque, but also about Sikh, the Amritsar. But anyway, we'll move beyond that. Interesting, when you read Nehru's book, which is called The Discovery of India, where he talks about the philosophy, the culture of India, which was written in 1946. And then you go 80 years later on, and you read a book by Ashoka Modi, which is not the prime minister. And the book title is India is Broken. And he mentioned many things about the features, about the cracks that are in India that will affect us in Egypt, because I think in the long run we have lots of similarity. I go to India almost every year, and I see lots of similarities to Egypt and lots of learning points. I'll have 2 points and I'll conclude. You talk about the green transition. Remember, India, the major composition of energy in India is coal, because it's abundant. So when you talk about the major polluter in terms of major contributor of climate change in the developing world, India is there. When you talk about just transition, I go to Chandigarh, for example, and I have the luck of going there during the monsoon season. When you go to Chandigarh itself, there is no drop of water on the floor, on the streets. You go like a few miles here or there, and it's floods, it's rivers. And you understand what Chandigarh represents in front of, this is inequality at its best. And I cannot complain, because you have the same thing in Egypt, by the way, maybe worse. Last thing I want to comment about is digital transformation. Digital transformation in India, I just want to alert you that it's really fueled by cheap Chinese hardware. So China actually is a major exporter to China of hardware. And I think this is probably multilateralism. Anyway, thank you, but there are lots of issues, there are lots of concerns about... I'm done.
Thank you very much. My name is Manal. I have the privilege of going to India like every 2 months. One of my dear friends, please give him my regard, Navdeep. Navdeep Suri is like a brother to me, and Mani, please. And I know he was there, but he left. He told me that he left the think tank. I do have a lot of work with India, and I have two comments. First, one socially, like what exactly Mr. Joshi said. My very first time to go to Uganda, I visited the Jinja, of course, and I was very astonished to know that some of the ashes of Gandhi are in the Nile. They were thrown in the Nile, and there is a mausoleum there, because Nile and Jinja are both sacred rivers, which is very important for us. Another very nice story that I talk about the digital, a very dear friend of mine, Ravi, he was the chairman of Microsoft, talking about the property right, and he was the chairman of Microsoft India. He went to visit the Minister of Communication to tell him that, listen, I mean, you've been copying all the Microsoft thing. So the minister told him, well, Mr. Microsoft, copyright in India means the right to copy. They said there is nothing called the copyright. It means the right to copy. And actually, this is some of the things that made India very, but as not a developer, the copyright issue is not really there because it's fine, it's a billion people anyway. What is very important to mention, and I didn't hear it here, is the education. India had taken a strategy to combat poverty by education. And I've witnessed that. I've been going to India from 2006, like every 2 months. I have 5 years visa because I work in agriculture. I have a strategic alliance with Jain Irrigations, and I had a lot of work with BHL for the solar power. And I have to salute the cooperative, because we're working with cooperative in India for agriculture, because in Africa, and this is what we establish a lot, and this is something very important, in the rural area, because India is rural mainly, Africa is rural. There is a lot of development there. And on the bilateral between Egypt and India, which is very important, there is a diplomatic fight, because India want to come to Africa, and there is no COMESA. They have to bear. So that's why it was very, Egypt really strongly not recommending that India and Africa will have free trade agreement, otherwise the COMESA. And that's why a lot of Indian companies are coming Egypt to manufacture here, because they're exporting under the COMESA. But one thing very important, there is a lot of custom duties in India preventing a lot of Egyptian product to go there, especially on whatever food processing. So I think on the bilateral, to come to down to earth, it has always to come. It's very good to have MOUs, but I think when you come to private sectors, and when you see how we can establish this in education, like Ala is doing, like we are doing with the cooperative, because the example of cooperative in India, which unfortunately I didn't hear a lot of the agriculture or the social work that India is doing. I think there is a lot to be done, and I think Dr. Abla can integrate this in your think tank here, because education is key. Rural development is a very important factor, because then we can really establish. I know that there is a lot of scholarship between India and Egypt. A lot of Egyptians are going there for universities, but I think there is a lot to be done on the bilateral private sector, because actually at the end of the day, it's the private sector who does the deal at the end. So this is what I would like to mention.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Here? Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Mohammed Sabrin. I'm Egyptian writer. I think, sir, what we are looking for right now in the international arena, it is a new Cold War, bluntly. And what we are seeing is everyone speak about the crisis of the new liberalism and the crisis of capitalism itself. And I think what is happening right now, this gap between the one who own it and the one who don't own it is very huge. So we are not, this formula, what is called, the Washington formula or Washington consensus was not working in the Arab countries and in, the whole of Africa. Also, what we are seeing, the international order, it's actually losing its credibility. The Security Council don't succeed to stop the war in Gaza, the double standard, the collapse of the credibility of the Western mass media, and etc. What is else also important? Angela Merkel speak about the end of, the coexistence of multicultural. So, in Egypt and also in the Arab countries, nostalgia of the past is not valid. We have a new generation who are speaking, like the lady speak about, the tariffs. We need a fair deal. Everyone now speaks about.
So what is the question? Is there a specific question?
I'm coming.
You need to go faster. Sorry.
Mr. Tariq speak about that, the Gulf is, the key or the door, you have to knock it. No, it's Egypt. It's Egypt will be and always will be, the main door. So the Korean, the Chinese, the Russian, everyone is actually offering us a good deal. I didn't hear from you a very good deal to offer. So please be precisely, because the Arab countries altogether, the trade relation between the Arab countries and China exceeding 400 billion US dollar. And the coming project in the area is $1 trillion. So what is you are offering us? I didn't see anything precisely. And the main problem is how to create jobs. We speak about countries which have the main problem, like in India and in our countries, how to create jobs. The new technology is actually
I think
destroying
the
jobs.
point
Thank you
is
very
clear.
much.
Thank you so much. Then the next question, okay, here is going to be in Arabic, I know for sure.
Thank you so much. This is a very important topic, and your guests are very distinguished. I will be talking on a certain proposal, but prior to this, actually, the historical ties between India and Egypt is very important, and we need to consider it as a foundation and to build upon it, because previously we were building hinders and obstacles when we are thinking of the United Kingdom, because the previous English occupation to Egypt. But the historical ties between India and Egypt and the commercial ties previously were very important. Kindly please get into the point. The proposal is we need to develop the north of Suez Canal economic zone in order to expand and to contain Indian industries, because it's approaching to the Pacific Ocean and it contains lots of logistic infrastructure. That's why I'm asking about where is the Indian proposal? Where is the agreement? Russia before offered us a very good offer, and they came and made Russian industrial zone in Suez Canal economic zone. So we need to have a mutual respectable model of relations, of economic relations between the two countries, and taking into consideration the important geographical and demographical aspects here in Egypt, and to highlight the wealth of the two countries. Lastly, I need to say that in Suez Canal, the Indian commercial envoy were staying previously there. We have lots of relations between the two countries. Previously, in the previous centuries, we had even theaters of the Indian movies and plays. Thank you. And we're ready, even if they are coming to us in Suez Canal, to offer every incentives they need to be a promising place for the cooperation. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Abla. I am from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Dr. Samir was talking about the Brexit, and he was saying that this is not a Chinese club. So I need to ask whether the BRICS in India will be replaced any international organization or the United Nations. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Sadiq Abdelal. I'm a pediatrician. I made it intentionally to talk to last one, intentionally because I'm a medical physician, so I don't have enough place in this beautiful conference, but I do have an initiative that might be useful if we're looking for sustainability and continuity between to establish peace and prosperity between Egypt and India. I believe we should think about the new generation, the children. Children are facing a tsunami, whether digital or cybersecurity or transgenderism, and a lot of really very negative waves coming to our countries. So I believe that we should create what we call the child-to-child diplomacy between India and Egypt. We have to create such a link between the new generation. They have to learn about the Ayurvedic medicine that's present in India, the traditional Indian medicine. They have to face together all the upcoming futuristic calamities that they might face. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want to give the comments here, Dr. Samir and Mr. Joshi. Who would like to start? Okay. Okay.
So I think let me just quickly go down in the order as they were posed. The first one was a long list of woes and complaints by Professor Ali from the American University of Cairo. Look, you're entitled to your opinion. I don't necessarily agree with it, and I think that's the beauty of free societies. God bless you for your views. I don't think they are borne by facts. India in the last 10 years has developed the deepest ties with Gulf countries. They've never had deeper relationships with either UAE or Saudi Arabia, and it's happened under this government. So while you may buy the narratives emerging from Western newspapers and you may start believing it, that's not true. We are a complex country which has complexities. They are not always bright, but they are certainly not as dark as you want them to be. We are a happy people and we are a happy society. Come and spend some time with me, you might see a different India. I think you come here every year. Next time I invite you to my house, and I'll invite and give you a view of India that you perhaps have not seen. So let's try and work harder to make you change your mind. That's my project over the next few years. But certainly what your position is an opinion, not borne by facts. And certainly the addition of Sikhs, what are we talking about? Don't make a Canadian issue into an Indian issue. Indian Sikhs and Indian Hindus have no differences. This is rubbish. So this is again a Canadian-British agenda which is being imposed on us. Talk to the British authorities about that problem. That's not an Indian problem. And I think that again is something that requires huge correction. And I think that's the larger point. We have not seen each other's emergence in the last 20 years. We knew each other as kids. We don't know adults. Even those who are educated among us don't know about each other. And I think that should be the single point of focus. How do we get more Indians here, Ambassador? And how do we get more Egyptians in India? I think the people-to-people ties require renewal and review. And you will find that we are not a perfect society. We are a complicated society. We are, like someone said, a layered society. Sorry, I thought you wanted me to play with it, so I was holding both. But my point here is that don't believe everything you read. Come and experience it. We have layers and layers and layers, and over time we have found ways of accommodating all of those complications in our societies. Our democracy is robust. Our electorate is intelligent. Our leaders have to deliver. Development first, development first, development first. Unless you deliver on development, you're not going to be re-elected. That is the Indian truth. Everything else is noise. It is good for sound bites. It is good for newspapers to sell, and it's good for television channels to get news. We are focused. Now you mentioned about we being a coal society. It's a truism. You are revealing nothing new. 70% of our production used to be based on coal. Have we increased our renewable capabilities? Yes. We are, on a per capita basis, we are 2x of America, 4x of China. That is how much we spend more on renewables than in these countries too. So everything you say about India is true. The opposite is equally true, sometimes even more true. And that is the reality about India's green transition. that it is a serious story. We are the world's largest destination outside of the developed countries in terms of green investments. Why is it coming to us? This commercial capital, this is not loans, these are not aids, these are not freebies, these are commercial investments from Goldman Sachs and other institutions who are looking at what is happening in the green sector. So that's not the first one. So, but my invitation to Professor Ali to come and visit me in India, and I will show him a different India. Now, on the Indian education question, I think there was a point on education. Look, this is something that must be understood. In 1990s, if you asked an Indian household, and we do surveys, we do household surveys, consumption, expenditure surveys, Indian households used to spend 6% of their total expenditure on education. 20 years later, they are spending 26% on education. Indians are investing in education. Now, Indian investing in education and investing in knowledge and investing in a modern society do not conform to what Dr. Ali was painting India to be. If an Indian household is spending so much on getting a certain stage of knowledge attainment, it does not corroborate with what you are saying, Dr. Ali. You know, we are spending a lot on being better citizens of the world, on contributing to our digital transitions. No, I am saying it doesn't bear with the fact of a society that was so radical that you were trying to paint out. We are a society that is obsessed with acquiring skills and knowledge and attainment that can give us better jobs and give us better livelihoods and incomes. And that is the Indian obsession. Every Indian household spends its largest chunk of expenditure on education. And that is the story of India's transformation. Now, on the Chinese product, again, I think that's a very, very, very narrow view on Chinese presence in India's telecom sector. That was certainly true a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago. It was even more true. It is not true today. Let's be very clear about it. No, it is not true today. Today, the Chinese share is declining dramatically. If you looked at what China was 10 years ago versus what it is today, you see a dramatic reduction. You see the rise of Indian homegrown indigenous telecom manufacturing, which is now exporting. We used to be net importers of mobile and telecom equipment. Now we are net exporters. It has happened in less than the decade that you are mentioning. So yes, what you said was certainly true at the turn of the century and in the first decade of this century. It is certainly not true in the third decade of this century. We are now net exporters of telecom and mobile equipment. We are not net importers. China is absent from our telecom networks. China is not allowed to participate in our 5G and 6G and even in our social media spaces. We have taken certain actions. Now, I'm not saying they are right or wrong, but I don't think I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, and it may have been true at a certain point, but it is certainly not accurate today, and that's the point I want to make. Right? That's on that part. And education is really important, and I think you were mentioning education diplomacy as a link between our countries, and I agree with you. Whether it is children and welfare and well-being of children, whether it is their health systems, nutrition, learning capabilities, and being ambassadors of each other, to build a future cohort. For an India-Egypt partnership. I really love that idea, that let's, instead of sending folks when their worldview is already made up, let them learn together about the world they will co-inhabit. And I think that's a great idea on that particular part. On Suez Canal and what is the Indian offer, I'm sorry, India has not made an offer till now, so my apologies. But, the nature of the Indian industry is largely private. And there has to be a market case for Indian industry to find this to be worthwhile and to invest here. But here is my proposition. In the next 10 years, and we are all sitting here, I'll be here 10 years later if Abla invites me, we are roughly going to be around $10 trillion, give or take a few hundred million. We are going to have roughly $5 trillion of external import and exports at a 50% of our GDP. Roughly, that would mean quadrupling that would mean increasing 3 times our flow of goods through this region. Suez Canal is going to be India's most important route, most important channel of growth. Let me, I'm saying this to clarify something. Do not get confused by North-South corridor, IMEC and every other. India is going to be adding $3 trillion into global trade in 10 years' time every year. No single route is going to be is not going to be able to take that additional capacity. You will require multiple redundancies in the global trading systems, because India is not rising alone. Africa is rising, South Asia is rising, Southeast Asia is rising. The burden on the international trading system is going to be so much that you will require additionalities. I still see Suez Canal as being the trunk and others being the tributaries. So please believe me that you are going to see, whether you like it or not, a very large Indian presence in the coming decade in this part of the world, starting from the Suez Canal zone, port development, shipping industries, maintenance and operations, and number of other sectors, from transshipment to more boutique services that are going to be around the maritime spaces. So Suez Canal is going to be experiencing a large cohort of Indians coming in. I'm sorry India has not made a proposal till now. That is not the Indian model, but India is going to be sustainable and permanent here. And you are going to then tell me, why are there so many Indians here? So we are coming, and you're going to enjoy our participation in your economy. We truly believe that this is going to be the region through which we are going to catalyze our own transformation. On the MFA point of BRICS replacing the UN, or BRICS becoming a predominant multilateral body? No. BRICS will be one of the many bodies. There are going to be new geometries of multilateralism. BRICS is going to be one of them. Quad is another one of them. We have IPSA as the third. We have SCO for the Eurasian continent. India, in the world where multilateralism as a whole is struggling, number of plurilateral groups will step in. And BRICS is but one of them. It has a certain purpose, it has a certain agenda, and it will serve that particular purpose and agenda. For other purposes and other agendas, you will have different bodies to do those things. And I think you will find Egypt being part of similar diverse set of groupings to respond to different sets of issues. So I think all over the world, we will have a cluster and a bouquet of groupings that will work well. I think I've literally answered everything. Let me, Ambassador's question on, oh no, I think, sorry, Ambassador, let me respond to your question. Although it was not a question, but let me join. Look, as far as the Indian foreign policy is concerned, it has for the Middle East, it has remained true to its old position on the two-state solution. And I have no hesitation in saying that is the only way out. And we must find a way to stop this madness. That is the first Indian position on the Middle East. The second position of India in the Middle East is its revival of its ties, formal ties with Israel over the past few decades, which has now transcended relationships across political parties in India. Right? It's something that is now seen. Different political parties endorse that particular relationship. I don't think these are mutually exclusive. The idea that you cannot have that a two-state solution is predicated on India stopping its ties with Israel is not perhaps accurate. We in fact must use, all of us who are close to Israel must use this moment to encourage, compel, and make it see the reason of a sustainable peace which is beneficial for its own people and for the region and the much wider region that implicates. Did anyone succeed? We are all trying, right? No. Hey. Why are you asking me? I don't either represent. I'm saying we all must do.
No, please.
No.
We are not going to have this discussion.
No, I mean, I'm not an actor here. I'm just saying that we as India has a position, and we all must use this moment to find a lasting peace for this region. And I understand, look, what is happening, and you mentioned hypocrisy, and someone mentioned hypocrisy in this. It is hypocritical. It is the same world that was asking a certain treatment on human rights for a different conflict. The same people are taking a very different position when it comes to a second conflict. Geography matters, let's be honest here, that they have picked their locality and they are serving their own people. Hence, I'm saying we must partner together so that we create a world that is more equitable and less hypocritical. Certain rights are inalienable and they should not be victims to geography and the tyranny of political biases. Now, are we in a fair world? No, we are not. That's why it's failing. And I think that was the point I had made in my speech, that the institutions lack credibility, the world is not just, And globalization as we know it, whether it's the Washington Consensus or the mercantilist expansion of it, has caused problems to us. So I agree with your intervention. I don't think we disagree on that point. I agree with that point on most of the issues. But Ambassador, your point well taken.
Thank you so much. Mr. Joshi?
No, I think Samir has said most of what has to be said. No, I will only just add to what has been said. I think it's not about you doing this and I'm doing this. I mean, this thing can go round and round. The whole purpose of the conference which we've been having in the last 2 days is precisely to find the common points, the synergies, both in the geopolitical space, in the security space. We've been discussing many of these issues very, very closely as to where we will find these nodal points, where we make a more peaceful, equitable world. Yes, we are all horrified by what is happening in Gaza. There's no two bones about it. And if you look at India, there is horror in India too. No, there's a lot which is happening in the social media space. There's a lot which is happening in the public space. So do not think that we are immune to what is happening in the neighborhood. We are very much part of it. It affects us. We have our leverages. We are going to use them, and we continue to use them. We've been doing it in international bodies all the time, the way we've been voting most of the time. And there is a further demand. If you start looking at the statements coming out of India at the highest level also, India has repeatedly been calling out the hypocrisy of Western nations on what they mean by the rules-based international order. And this is happening at the highest level. It's not just us talking. I mean, we, yes, in the think tank space have been doing it, but there's a lot of voices coming out of India. So we are actually one on this. There is no doubt about it. The idea for all of us for the future is, now how do we make this a more robust system? The system is collapsing. No, the order is not working the way it is meant to be. Can India and Egypt with other like-minded nations, this is the moment where we are thinking in terms of creating the next new world order. What can we do together to be able to do it? Which is just, which is equitable. There are major challenges there, but the only way out then is going to be countries like us who stand where we are, which are multicultural, which are diverse, which do not see the world in black and white, most important. We do not think in terms of good and evil. We are, civilizational powers. We forgive, forget, and move on. We forgot and forgave the depredations of colonialism. We moved on, we forgave. And that is the way to go forward and make a better and more peaceful world. That is the only way we can do it. So we will find a middle path. We are the countries who always find middle paths.
It's very much so. Ambassador, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. To conclude, let me say 3 points. Okay. Number one, it's beyond obvious that India has undergone very big change. Okay. Whether, and I'm referring to what Dr. Ali was talking about, and Dr. Samir's answer. Okay. There is a change. Okay, from a situation to another situation. It's beyond obvious, and it's an impressive change worth learning from. That's a fact. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think we need to collaborate. India doesn't have to make an offer. Okay, and Egypt and India will collaborate for sure, because there is an economic benefit to do so. Okay, and if the future benefit, if India is looking at it from a futuristic point of view, then we need to start work on it now, which means we have to start fixing a lot of things in our system, okay, and work together. And this is exactly what our 2 think tanks are going to do, to try and reach the full potential, plan for a change. We always react to what happens in the world. It's time that we start planning ahead for what needs to be done, and that's exactly what we are talking about. The collaboration between our 2 centers and the collaboration between our 2 countries, really, I strongly believe, and I agree completely with what has been said, needs to be within the framework of those 5 points that were mentioned. We need to unite, okay, in a way that creates a better system in the world. We cannot change the economic order at this point fully, as we would love to. Okay, we would love to cancel the Bretton Woods Agreement and have another one. This is one of my dreams in life. Okay, but one way to start is for the countries for the global South, and the powerful countries in it, and India is on the top actually, okay, and so is Indonesia and Brazil, and all the efforts that are taking place is for us to unite in the correct way, okay, which is not close our doors, but get together and fit ourselves in the system, seeking to improve it and improve it as we go on. So I agree completely with being the defenders of the multi-alignment system and everything else, and that we have, and the just green transition, we have to work on it. It's not happening. We have to work on it, etc., etc., etc. The West, okay, does not want us to get together in all international arenas. By the way, when they sit here, they say, define the global South. What is the global South? We don't know it. And all those countries are having problems among each other, and they differ in size. So, but well, look at the EU. I mean, it's a mess. All countries are fighting inside. And look at the US. It's another mess. Why are you always looking at us as being the weak? The only way to get over this is for us to get together and to work. On the Gaza issue, it's beyond obvious that everything that is happening cannot be ignored by anybody. We are all very deeply hurt. In Egypt, we are even more hurt than others. We're seeing it every day, and it's something that's in our hearts, okay? And the people all over the world believe in this, and hopefully we are going to get somewhere. I don't know exactly when, but we are going to get somewhere. Having said this, thank you so much. Great speakers, great panelists, commentators. Really, really appreciate it, and thank you so much, the audience. Absolutely great audience. Absolutely great audience. And I want to take the opportunity to thank my team at ECS. Some of them are here, some of them are over there. They've been working very hard those last 2 days. So I want to give them a hand, please. Okay? The entire team. And thank you all for being here, and I welcome and very happy with our new collaboration, the collaboration between ECS and ORF. Thank you.